Ladies and gentlemen, this next segment of the podcast is brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. For over 50 years, the Heritage Foundation has been America's outpost in Washington, fighting against the D.C. federal bureaucracy and working to secure a future that allows Americans to flourish. You see, for too long, conservative principles have been ignored by many of the very leaders claiming to fight for America. But the Heritage Foundation is proud to hold our leaders accountable and stand up for America's founding principles, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Fantastic three-day weekend. Let us not forget about Memorial Day and what it's for. Obviously, you'll have a day off and you can enjoy yourselves, but take a minute or two to remember all the men and women who died for this country so that we could live the type of lives that we live today. And this does bring me to a point, what they've died for. I'm not going to get into J.D. Vance's speech today at the Naval Academy, Mr. Producer. We basically said it's time to abandon the foreign policy of the founders for a new foreign policy. I can deal with that at another day and another time. Actually like the man very much. He's a gentleman. He's smart. I don't think he's had exposure to enough other viewpoints. Foreign policy's bottom line is about prudence, not ideology. Not ideology. A lot of great things were done in our foreign policy in the past, a lot. A lot of people are now free. A lot of people's lives were saved. And of course, there were occasions when we had quite poor foreign policies. It's the nature of human beings. It's the nature of institutions. That's the nature of a republic. But that's not my purpose right now. It's not my purpose at all. I promised you yesterday, and by the way, there is a ton to get to today, and we will get to all of it. We have a great guest in the second hour, our friend Douglas Murray. But before we do, I hope you'll turn up the volume. Sit back and relax. If you're driving your car, just obviously watch the road, but be attentive to what I want to talk about. I know a lot of people are on the road this evening as you have your vacation plans and so forth. But I think this is very interesting. You know, I try to do history, the Constitution, law, economics, philosophy in a way that is interesting, in a way that is understandable, because otherwise, what's the point, right? What is the difference, I asked yesterday, between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party? What is the difference, even more fundamentally, between conservatives? I don't even want to say liberals anymore, because there are very few liberals, leftists, radicals, extremists on the left, You're going to go, oh boy, I already know the answer to this. Do you? Have you actually been exposed to the answer? Probably to some extent if you listen to this program. What makes the difference is your Declaration of Independence. Why? You know, the Declaration of Independence says absolutely nothing that's new. Nothing. Nothing that's new. Unalienable rights, eternal truths, God-given power, sovereignty rather. None of that's new. What was totally new about it wasn't the substance, but its embrace and its application to what was going to be the birth of a new country. That has never happened before, ever. Ever. And why is that? Why hasn't it ever happened before? Virtually every other country is founded, and every country is founded differently. Some through violence, some gradually, some suddenly. Virtually every other country is founded without a declaration of philosophical belief and value systems. I can't think of any. We might say Marxism. I'll get to that in a minute. And what is it that this declaration is talking about when it talks about these things, this natural law and natural rights and unalienable rights and eternal law? What is all this? Is it mysticism, as Marx said? What is it? Is it just the terms and the words of a period of time in American history and human history, as Woodrow Wilson said, of no meaning to today? It's the basis for our republic. The Declaration of Independence. The words in the Declaration of Independence. It's a declaration of why the colonists were fighting against the most powerful military force on the planet. Why? Was it representative government? That was part of it, of course. The consent of the governed. Taxation, that was part of it, of course. But fundamentally, what was it? It was over power. Now, here's the thing about power. It's not an easy concept. It's a very complicated issue. We can talk about 3 branches of government and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. You have a nation that was founded on the idea that the sovereign is not the government. That the sovereign is something bigger, it's something more. That sovereignty belongs to the individual. And sovereignty as a community, as a society, belongs to we the people. The individual and we the people. Well, where does that come from? Who says? Your Declaration of Independence, and even more, the battle for independence, ready for this, was based on the belief that God gives us our liberty, our rights, and more importantly, our power. God. Now, some of you might be saying, look, that's all well and good. You know, I go to church, I go to synagogue. Well, what is this God stuff? We even have people in the society, obviously, who don't believe in God. Or maybe they're agnostic, believe in God, but they're not sure what it means, or they're just don't care. That's okay. They can believe whatever they want. I'm talking about how this nation was founded, not what one person may or may not believe. You see, the people who are non-believers, that is, who don't believe in God, they get to come along for the ride. Now, what does that mean, Mark? It's not a put-down in any way. This society was set up by people who did believe in God. Now, I'm not here as a rabbi or a pastor or a priest or anything of the sort. I'm not lecturing you about God. I'm telling you about your history. Your history. Some people are more religious than others. That's perfectly fine. I'm not talking about that either. The fundamental basis of this nation's founding was a belief in a sovereign God. And it's through a sovereign God, our sovereign God, we, his children, have sovereignty over government. That an individual has sovereignty. That a community of individuals, a society, we the people have sovereignty, not government. It's not a coincidence that Marxism, which is the greatest threat, that in Islamism, I'll get to that in a minute, to us as an ideology both within our country and outside our country, not to get too deep into the weeds, or Rousseauism or Hegelism or Marxism, that whole cabal of thinking, and I'll get to that in a second. So when you read the Declaration of Independence, it is the most unique pronouncement or declaration of a revolution, truly a revolution, ever. Now, our founders, the vast majority were Christian. Not all, but the vast majority. And they had different beliefs within Christianity, and so you have the different sects within Christianity. But they didn't have to believe the same way as Christians. And you'd even have to be a Christian to believe in the value system. The nation was founded on Judeo-Christian values and beliefs, fused with an embrace of the Enlightenment. Now, how do I know this? Because they told us. The founders of your country were not bashful about telling us who they were, what they believed, and what they were doing. They told us. Jefferson, who wrote the first draft of the Declaration, that key document, he tells us in a letter, responding to somebody who's inquiring of him near the end of his life, essentially accusing him of plagiarism. None of these ideas are your ideas, you know. And Jefferson said, I never said they were. I never said they were. It was a concise compilation of the views, the beliefs of the people who rose up to found a new nation. It's so unique. Now, again, perhaps you're listening to this program and you're an atheist or so forth. It's okay. But our country was not founded on your beliefs or lack thereof. And you're able to be an atheist in this country because the country was not founded on your beliefs or your lack of beliefs. You live in a free country, relatively anyway, thanks to the people who founded it. And it's worth trying to understand what they understood. Sovereignty is about power. Who has sovereignty? The ruling class, the government, or the people? Now, sovereignty in the people doesn't mean anarchy, mob rule, majority rule at all times. It means that whatever form of government you construct, whatever form of government you establish, requires the consent of the sovereign, the people. Well, that we human beings sin, knowing full well that we human beings aren't perfect. This is all in the book, if you haven't figured it out by now, on power, but it's very important. And so, a government needs to be set up that does several things. That involves the consent of the governed. Representative government. People get to vote. But enshrines the principles in the Declaration of Independence. So people get to vote, people get their say, but they cannot steal from you as a group your sovereign authority. That is, your unalienable rights. Now, I hate to do this. I have to take a break. Try and have a mental bookmark, if you will. I'll pick it up. But this is very important because now you're going to soon understand why we're different than the Democrats, or we conservatives are different from the rest of them. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The Heritage Foundation wants to wish a happy Armed Forces Day to the men and women currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. Heritage recognizes that without their sacrifice and devotion, Americans could not enjoy the freedoms we have today. And with Memorial Day right around the corner, it's more important now than ever to reflect on the sacrifices of so many. Unfortunately, the U.S. government doesn't always honor those sacrifices very well. A declining defense industrial base and a nuclear arsenal that some say is quickly being outpaced by China are some of the most pressing issues facing our military right now. Defense experts at the Heritage Foundation have spent significant time investigating these issues, and they now have solutions. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get access to Breathtaking, the Heritage Foundation's newly released nuclear documentary. Grab your copy. It's absolutely free. Again, go to heritage.org/Levin, Levin. Get access to Breathtaking. You'll also find their latest report on how the U.S. can take action now to revitalize our declining defense industrial base. You can find these eye-opening resources at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. I only have a minute or so in this segment, so I'll pick it up more heavily, more thoroughly after the bottom of the hour, but I want you to think about this. This notion of sovereignty and power. Your First Amendment to the Constitution, adopted after the Constitution was adopted, talks about the free exercise of religion, but also they do not want the establishment of a state religion. That's because this notion of sovereignty, this belief in unalienable rights, and so forth and so on, are the rights of a human being. They're individual rights, and they are collective rights within a society, which is what Locke was trying to explain at some great length during the Enlightenment. So I will pull this all together, and then I'll explain to you what the other side stands for. We'll be right back. Have you thanked a U.S. service member recently? With Armed Forces Day this past weekend and Memorial Day coming up right now, the Heritage Foundation is committed to honoring the sacrifice of those who gave their lives for our freedoms and protecting those who currently serve. The U.S. government, however, has not demonstrated the same commitment. Our defense industrial base, which is vital to keeping a strong and ready military, it's in a shambles. Our nuclear arsenal is even in worse shape. The Heritage Foundation recognizes the severity of this threat, and you can now gain access to what their research has uncovered. It's unbelievable. In fact, it's breathtaking. Go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get access to the report. It's called Breathtaking, China's Race to Nuclear Dominance. This is eye-opening. It's a deep dive. It underscores why it's critical that the U.S. take action right now. You'll also gain access to the Heritage Foundation's latest report on how to revitalize our declining defense industrial base. For the safety of those who currently serve, it is imperative that we take action right now. So please visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Yes, it's true that Mark Levin is the fastest growing radio show in America. The Mark Levin Show is on at 877-381-3811.
What I'm discussing here is a core aspect of my new book on power, which will come out on July 29th. You can pre-order your copy now. It's already started. Amazon has to discount it, but it will be discounted much more than it already is. And you will receive the benefit of the larger discount until the book is released. That's how they operate. But I consider it probably the most important book I've ever written. I want to get back to this point. What do we stand for? What did our framers and our founders stand for? So this issue of sovereignty, is directly linked to power. And so I was just saying, the individual is sovereign. The collective of individuals, the society, we the people, are the sovereigns. No government is legitimate that's not a government with our consent, with representation, hence the revolution. Hence my objection over and over again, aggressively, against unelected judges and what they're doing to our country. They do it without our consent. Now, that said, by that, the framers did not mean that we just take a vote every time and the majority wins. Why? Why? Because even though you and I have our own sovereignty, and we collectively have the sovereignty of the civil society, that's what we are, man is not perfect, quite the contrary. And, in fact, history has demonstrated for sure that factions and mobs and even a majority can be very evil, that there is a darker side to mankind. It's in your Bible. It's in the Torah. There's a darker side to mankind. And so, we are to use our God-given ability to reason to try and figure out the best form of self-control, that would be government, that ensures the fullest extent of our individual and collective sovereignty in a manner that doesn't destroy itself. Does that make sense, Mr. Producer? This is me speaking through my book, describing what is meant and what is intended here. And so, God is sovereign. That sovereign authority is passed on to his children, we the people, you as an individual. Unalienable rights, the right to life and liberty, the pursuit of happiness. What was meant by the pursuit of happiness there meant to fulfill yourself, basically. And along with this sovereignty and this power comes liberty and rights. Now, I can't do the whole book here in 15 minutes. So, in the book, I get into what do we mean by liberty? And what do we mean by rights? And I think you'll find that fascinating, but not for tonight. And so a government needs to be set up that reflects the will of the people, that involves the consent of the people through representation, and protects us from the mob and protects us from a handful of masterminds. That is the best way to ensure the maximum amount of sovereignty each of us have as individuals and as a group of people. This is where the enlightenment kicks in. The enlightenment. Even before the enlightenment, Aristotle, even before Aristotle, Plato, but Aristotle primarily, talked about power. Not specifically, but enough for us to understand what he was talking about. And then his thoughts about power generally were more sort of massaged, become more tangible when we get to John Locke and Montesquieu. John Locke was the most important philosopher during the Revolutionary period. Montesquieu was the most important philosopher during the Constitutional period. He's referenced in the Federalist Papers. How do we know that? Again, they told us. They weren't the only ones, but they were important. So what did they look at? What did they look at when they created this Declaration and this Constitution? They looked at everything I just told you and more. Everything I just told you and more. So remarkable was the American Revolution. So remarkable is the Declaration. So remarkable is the Constitution. No group of people have ever created anything like it. None. None. So, this issue of power. Who exercises it? When do they exercise it? As you can see just from my, really barely touched the subject, but you can see just from my little taste, giving you a little taste of this, that these were great men who did great things, who restrained themselves when they founded this nation. They didn't empower themselves. They didn't empower a certain class of people. They weren't even thinking about a certain class of people. Almost all of them had been farmers. Almost all of them worked the land themselves. They were real people. The people who participated in the revolution. Paul Revere was a blacksmith. I can go down the list. Serious people. When you look at the Declaration and it talks about natural rights and natural law, what does all that mean? It means there's certain eternal truths. What's an eternal truth? It's not man-made. Where does it come from? It comes from God. Those of you who go to church and go to synagogue or go to your mosques or whatever you do, why do you do that? Why do you do it? Because you know there's something greater than you. And why do we pretend there's not when it comes to creating a nation or a government? And so, there's certain eternal truths. Right from wrong, good from evil. The golden rule is good. Killing is bad. The Ten Commandments. These things are known throughout our country. They're known throughout every country. Now, that doesn't mean that they're honored. It doesn't mean that they're embraced. You have evil regimes, you have evil people, and so forth and so on. But they're known to them. They just reject them. This is what's meant by right reason. Not just reason, but right reason. Reasoning the right way. This is what's meant by eternal truths. Something that is known. in some cases intuitively, in some cases by experience, in some cases some other way, but it's known by every person. Even the person who is a mass murderer knows what he's doing is wrong, assuming he's not mentally ill, knows what he's doing is wrong, but he doesn't care. Again, unless they have, they're psychos. And so, these are eternal truths. There are other eternal truths. That men and women, but I'll use the word men like we used to, men have a dark side. Men have a bright side, but they also have a dark side. It's the nature of imperfect human beings who sin. People are ambitious. People can be greedy. And go down the list of negative things that you know about other people, perhaps yourself, or people in history. God didn't create perfect people. You have sovereignty. People in a society of sovereignty, but that doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean we're always good. And so here on earth, we try and create institutions that nurture and recognize our human sovereignty, but at the same time, protect us, one from the other, from the darker side of humanity. Making sense so far, Mr. Producer? This is all in the book, in plain English. Why does it matter? It matters. It goes to the core of every damn thing that's going on in this country and in the world. Now, there's a lot more to this, but I don't have all night, so I want to move on to the other side, okay? So understand, I'm stipulating right now, you read the book, you'll know a lot more about this. There are many tributaries to what I'm talking about here. I hope it piques your interest, but it's something I want to convey regardless. What about the other side? The Democrat Party, the left, the Marxists, the rest. They don't start at the same premise that you and I start at. They don't start with the same premise that the founders of our country did. They literally reject the Judeo-Christian values and belief system. They won't admit it. Some of them go to church and synagogue. I don't care what they admit. I'm explaining. It's not a matter of whether you go to church or synagogue or do anything else. It's a matter of whether you embrace the whole notion of what it is that God has done for his people. So let me explain. Let me try it this way. Woodrow Wilson spent a lifetime when he was an academic, then he became president of Princeton and obviously president of the United States. His impact was significant in the intellectual and academic world, even much more significant when he became president of the United States. He rejected the Declaration of Independence. If you've read any of my books, I've quoted him. He rejected them, the Declaration of Independence, over and over and over again. He mocked the Declaration. He denounced the Declaration. In sum, what Woodrow Wilson said, and there were many, I'm just using him as an example, but an important example. He said, look, we can't be bound by the beliefs and the attitudes and the mindset of the 1700s and these men who met at the Second Continental Philadelphia and come up with this document, the Declaration, or the men who went back to the same place, Independence Hall, and came up with this Constitution and so forth and so on. What does that have to do with us, he says? They had the right to write those documents, to determine what they believed and try and impose their will on the nation, and so do we. We have the right to say no, that we don't accept the nature or even the text of what they said. He said, look at the Declaration. All those fancy words at the beginning. That's not the important part of the Declaration, he says. It's the second part where they lay out their specific allegations against the crown. That's what we should focus on. What's all this stuff about unalienable rights, about natural law, natural right? What is all this stuff about providence? What is this? And in this, listen carefully, he was regurgitating Karl Marx. Karl Marx called essentially the Declaration. He didn't call the Declaration directly, but the people who think like this, and he was talking about America, as embracing mysticism, blinding them to the modern world. All this stuff about God and God's children and sovereignty passed on to the individual and the people, that's archaic. Doesn't make any sense. And it obstructs the ability of modern man to think for himself. Tied to this mysticism. We have a right to create the kind of society we want. Right now, right here. More when I return.
Mark Levin.
The Heritage Foundation wants to wish a happy Armed Forces Day to the men and women currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. Heritage recognizes that without their sacrifice and devotion, Americans could not enjoy the freedoms we have today. And with Memorial Day right around the corner, it's more important now than ever to reflect on the sacrifices of so many. Unfortunately, the U.S. government doesn't always honor those sacrifices very well. A declining defense industrial base and a nuclear arsenal that some say is quickly being outpaced by China are some of the most pressing issues facing our military right now. Defense experts at the Heritage Foundation have spent significant time investigating these issues, and they now have solutions. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get access to Breathtaking, the Heritage Foundation's newly released nuclear documentary. Grab your copy. It's absolutely free. Again, go to heritage.org/Levin, Levin. Get access to Breathtaking. You'll also find their latest report on how the U.S. can take action now to revitalize our declining defense industrial base. You can find these eye-opening resources at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. So for Woodrow Wilson, for Bernie Sanders, for Hakeem Jeffries, for all of them, the principles of the founding are irrelevant. This is why they all talk about the fundamental transformation of America, fundamental transformation away from the founding to something else. And that something else is an ideology that I think where there were overlaps between Rousseau and Hegel and Marx. Rousseau first, then Hegel, then Marx. And I'm not going to get into them in any great detail here. I did get into them in great detail in prior books, but no point in doing that now. And essentially, whether it's materialism or historicism or thisism or thatism, the bottom line is you've got to destroy the existing society, stop focusing on individual sovereignty. And Rousseau talked about the individual being fulfilled most comprehensively through the state. Hegel did much of the same thing, but with really a much different process in mind. And then, of course, we have Marx, everything material and economic. He basically steals from Hegel and then puts his own touch on it. Again, it's not important to understand every aspect of it. I will get into it. You will see some of it in the book related to Marx, but let me go on. And so they believe, as the modern progressives of the late 1800s, early 1900s, what I call American Marxists, because they're the progeny, really, of Hegel and Marx, but mostly Marx. They read Marx. They like Marx. They spread the Marxism, the ideology of Marxism through different avenues. They say, no, no, no. The world begins today. We're going to rejigger man. We're going to rejigger society. None of this talk about sovereignty. If anybody has sovereignty, it's the ruling class. If anybody has sovereignty, it's quote-unquote the Politburo. If anybody has sovereignty, you get the point. It turns our entire founding on its head. That's why you never hear the Democrats or the media or the left speak as I spoke in the first half hour of this hour. And they keep talking about rights through government, liberty through government, equality and now equity through government, and increasingly centralized government where the states have no say, where the people have no say, through international organizations, where we literally convey our governing sovereignty to international organizations where we have no individual sovereignty. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. So let me elucidate just a little longer on the Democrats' side. And remember, this is very, very surface level. There's much more in the book on power, but I'm trying to give you a taste for it. This is only one little corner of it, too, but it's a very important idea that we need to understand. And the reason I decided to get into this is because when I was watching TV yesterday, Republicans, hosts, kept saying the Democrats don't know what they stand for. They're out there, you know, they're fighting with each other. That is a very superficial view of what's taking place. They know what they stand for, and they know what they don't stand for, and they do not stand for our founding principles. They may say they do. They may pretend that they're very upset when you challenge them. But they're two completely different wavelengths, which is my point. And so, like Wilson and the others, they rejected the founding. They rejected the Declaration. They rejected the basis for the nation. And they reject the Constitution. Woodrow Wilson attacked it. He attacked the whole idea of separation of powers. His various writings, he was a little schizophrenic. First, he argued for an all-powerful presidency, and then he settled on an all-powerful judiciary. Why? Because the judiciary is unaffected by elections. And so they can keep pushing their propaganda, their agenda, their so-called principles without the difficulty or constraint of we the people. Not so with the president. And so an all-powerful judiciary, an all-powerful administrative state, which is also what they came up with, which is what we're struggling with today. That's why understanding this is so damn important. You have nothing even close to a republic, let alone a constitutional republic. And we live in a post-constitutional period in many respects. I've been talking about this for some time. So the Democrats, and by the Democrats I don't mean Frank and Sally and Joe who work for a living, who are of the Democrat Party and who love our country. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the masterminds, self-appointed. I'm talking about the media, self-appointed masterminds in the media, self-appointed political, individuals who think they should be running the country. And they keep talking about nationalizing programs, centralizing programs. You hear Bernie Sanders. You hear AOC. There's never any talk about individual sovereignty. There's never any talk about the civil society. They reject it all. And so for them, your liberties and rights, again, I haven't really dug into this, but it's very thoroughly discussed in the book. Your liberty and rights don't come from your individual sovereignty in God. They come from government. And when that happens, government is a tyranny. In other words, it comes from a cabal of individuals, even the ruling class, as I have been referring to it now for decades. It is a small fraction of the overall population of we the people. And they have no idea what we think or what we feel or what we believe. They try and manipulate us and coerce us and control our thought processes, another section of the book. So their goal is to control us, not to represent us. That's why they oppose free speech to such an extent, academic freedom to such an extent. That's why they embraced wokeism, which is the new aspect of applying Marxism to a free society. Controlling what you can say, how you can say it, when you can say it, in threat of losing your career, or having a scarlet letter posted on your forehead, that sort of thing. And so the Democrat Party is a party, an American Marxist party. It's tailored to, customized for the American culture. And it has succeeded in that. And again, for them, Rousseau, Hegel, Marx, Rousseau, autocracy, Hegel, fascism, which is obviously part of autocracy, and for Marx, his own form of effectively fascism, communism. And when you look at Marxism, a complete and utter failure with 100 million deaths, I don't know how many more experiments we need with that ideology. The language, oppress and oppressor, which most of the people using it today never used it before they read American Marxism or heard this show. It is a talking point you hear throughout our society now. Throughout the society. And it is the basis for the modern-day Democrat Party. They talk about spending. They talk about redistribution of wealth. They talk about oligarchies, billionaires. They talk about the fundamental transformation of America. In 2020, when the riots were taking place, and thereafter, they were trashing the Constitution. The men who wrote the Constitution, they were trashing the founding of America. The entire thing was under attack. Still is in our schools. Still is. That's the mentality, complete rejection of the founding. When you listen to Schumer and Jeffries and the rest of them, it's important to keep all this in mind. Now, again, if you didn't catch it all, or it doesn't all easily digest in a period of an hour, I get it. You'll have the book. I want to encourage you to grab it. This is a great weekend to do it. You can give it for Father's Day. You won't have the book in hand, but you can tell your father, your grandfather, your husband, and so forth that this is what's coming. At the same time, you'll get the discount, the biggest discount that they provide once the book is released. That's what I want to encourage you to do, to read it so we can engage each other and engage what I call our enemy and have a better understanding than the people on TV and radio who talk about, oh, the Democrats are in a state of confusion. They're in the... Ladies and gentlemen, that is a respite. That is a short period of time. Their designs on this country are evil, and they're not going to give up. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. It's always a pleasure to have our friend Douglas Murray on the program. Really a great guy, and really a civil libertarian. Very man who believes in humanity. I like to think I do as well. Welcome, Douglas. First of all, there are platforms I even agree with that seem to get things wrong, Douglas. Like, for instance, if Israel decides to take out Iran's nukes, I just heard, on its own, because there's no deal or there's a deal it doesn't agree with, then Israel will be dragging the United States into war. What do you make of that?
It's strange, Mark, because like you, I've heard this for some 20 years now. Israel's allies all know, as Israel knows, that the thing most likely to destabilize the world in our century would be a nuclear-armed Iran, where the Ayatollahs who've driven Iran into the ground since the revolution in 1979 had hold of the world's most genocidal weaponry, and of course a regime which uses the most genocidal rhetoric. Everybody knows that if they got hold of a nuclear weapon, not just the Middle East, but the whole world will be destabilized. The whole Middle East will start to nuke up in no seconds flat the moment it happened. And yet it's always presented as if it is Israel's determination to prevent the mullahs getting nuclear bombs that is the threat to world peace. And I've heard this for years now, and it's as untrue today as it always has been.
It amazes me. We were attacked in this country, obviously, on 9/11. We were attacked before. We've been attacked after. Maybe people think that this gives them some kind of comfort that if we control Israel, quote unquote, that somehow we'll control the Islamists. It doesn't work that way, as you point out. In other words, their wars against Israel, the United States, Europe, the West. They want to destroy the West. Isn't that right?
Well, yes. And I mean, every single one of the mouthpieces, official and unofficial, in this country, in the United States of America, all the mouthpieces of Iran all say this. It's not like we have to go hunting for their intentions. Whether it's a student group at Columbia University that says it wants to destroy Israel, but also to, quote, eradicate Western civilization. Yes, eradicate Western civilization. But they always say it, just as the Ayatollah Khomeini, again last week, responding to President Trump's visit to the Middle East, said what he had to say against the president and leading chants of death to America. I mean, sure, they chant death to Israel, but they always chant death to America as well. And I'm always bewildered by the number of people who think it's sort of hard to tell exactly what the Ayatollah wants. Like, he does it every week. This is what he's done, and his regime has done for 46 years.
I don't think these people take 9/11 seriously. I don't. It's the same mentality. It's the same ideology. It's the same mission. You point out it's not like they're hiding it. No, they're proud of it. And so this 9/11 occurs. Thousands of Americans are slaughtered. And they act like Israel's the problem. Israel had nothing to do with that. And by the way, Douglas, when we decided to take on Al-Qaeda and ISIS and so forth, did we ask Israel their opinion? Did we ask Europe's opinion? Did we ask anybody their opinion, or did we just take care of business?
Right. And by the way, I mean, not just America that takes care of business quite rightly when America needs to take care of business. Every sensible country, even some pretty nonsensible ones like France, when Paris was attacked in 2015 and people were massacred at the Bataclan Theater and in the stadium outside of Paris by suicide bombers, President Hollande, a left-wing socialist French president, didn't go around asking everyone if he had permission to bomb ISIS in Syria and Iraq. He did it. He got some allies together, and they bombed the hell out of ISIS and stopped ISIS from being able to carry out attacks like that. And everybody knew that was France's right to do that, because they wanted to stop citizens being murdered in the center of Paris and other French cities. And it's so bizarre. Every nation rightly has a survival instinct, and that includes knowing better than anyone else how to protect your people. And the Israeli government always prioritize, of course, the safety of the people of Israel, because that's their job. That's what they're the government to do. But it is so strange in so much of the West to hear the criticism when it's Hamas that is being taken out, not ISIS, or the Ayatollahs that are doing genocidal rhetoric, seeking genocidal bombs. It's for some reason the world's attention always turns on Israel and looks at it as the aggressor, even when it is the victim of the genocidal attacks and the genocidal rhetoric.
You have as always, a tremendous article in the New York Post yesterday, a column. D.C. killings show how Americans are being incited to kill Jews by anti-Israel propaganda. Can you, for those who don't get the New York Post and so forth, can you kind of summarize your point there? Because I thought it was very important.
Well, yes. I mean, we saw something pretty horrific on the streets of our capital this week. The assassination in cold blood of two people leaving a Jewish museum in the center of Washington, D.C., and the gunman, the killer, shouting, "Free, free Palestine," as he reloaded his gun and shot the female victim to death, along with her fiancé. And that chant is very telling, because it's the same chant that Americans have had to put up with in major cities for the last 19 months. And one of the things that's very important about the murders that happened on the streets of D.C. On Wednesday night, one of the extraordinary things about it is that the culprit was not an Islamist. He was not somebody who was even Muslim, and he certainly wasn't from the Middle East, probably couldn't have pointed to it on a map. But he had been radicalized by the movement, the anti-Israel, the anti-Western, anti-American movement that has been fed and watered and nurtured in the last 19 months. And the fact that he was still shouting these slogans as the DC police handcuffed him should be a reminder to people that when we talk about radicalization, left in this country is perfectly capable of radicalizing people in front of our very eyes. Just look at much of the mainstream media in the days before this appalling, cold-blooded assassination of two young people. The media was pushing around a lie from the United Nations, that the United Nations rapporteur himself ended up having to withdraw, that there were going to be 14,000 Gazan babies murdered in the next 48 hours unless the world acted. They lied and lied about this as they lie about so many other things. The UN removes the report, but they've put the lie out into the world. And what do you expect at some level if you keep whipping people up into these most base hatreds, these conspiracy theories, which we now hear coming from the right as well as from the left? When this happens and you say, we have to do something must be done, then yes, amazingly enough, you get crazy and wicked people like the culprit who went and shot these two young people in D.C. this week. This is radicalization in America.
Douglas Murray's book is On Democracies and Death Cults, Israel and the Future of Civilization. You can grab a copy right now at Amazon. We're going to keep our friend over the break. There's more to discuss. We'll be right back. Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans, with plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data. you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Douglas Murray, his book is on democracy and democracies and death cults, Israel and the Future of Civilization. Israel and the Future of Civilization. Now, we've touched on this, but it always is worth repeating and elaborating on, Douglas. You mean by that what?
Well, I mean that everything is at stake, depending on whether people outside of the Middle East as well as inside it decide to side with the democracy that is fighting a war against the death cult, or decide to side with the death cult. In the Middle East itself, there are countries that are trying to align with Israel. They've realized that it is much better for them and their people to be on the side of the democracy in the Middle East, on the side of Israel. There are other countries, principally Iran, that we were talking about before the break, but also, I'd argue, Qatar, that have decided to play a game where they back the death cult. But the same divide occurs in America. The same divide occurs on our streets here. And as we were saying just before the break, just consider the number of young people in America who all the polls show are being indoctrinated into support of a death cult, into support of Hamas. And every single time there is something we can say with certainty, which is that if you are on the side of Israel, you're also on the side of America. You're on the side of the West. And if you're on the side against Israel, every single time you will be shown to be somebody who is also anti-American and anti-Western. We mentioned just before the break the atrocity in Washington, D.C. this week. If you look at the social media posts of Yaron, the young man who was murdered on the streets along with his fiancée, if you look at his social media posts, he talks not just about Israel and about the Middle East and the war there, but of his deep love for America and his gratitude for America. Look at the posts linked to his killer, and you'll see the killer calling for death to America. He brought death to two beautiful young people this week in Washington, D.C., but he also wished death on the whole of America. And this is a constant. Every anti-Israel protest in this country, whether it is on the streets of the U.S. Capitol or on an American elite university, they never celebrate America. They wave the flags of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Palestinian Authority and so on. They never fly an American flag. I actually, when I was researching my book on democracies and death cults, one of the young people I had the good fortune to interview in America was a student at Columbia University who served in the American Armed Forces, who went back to university after doing his service for this country. And he described how one day he decided to go into the center of the university flying the American flag, and he was attacked by the anti-Israel protesters. And as he said to me, what is it that a flag I fought for and I lost my comrades fighting for is a flag that people are trying to stop me putting up in a campus in the United States of America, the flag of this country.
It really is just unbelievable. Now, we have billions and billions of dollars flowing into this country from a number of countries, but primarily, top of the list is Qatar. Qatar is a terror state. Qatar has funded Hamas. Qatar has funded the Muslim Brotherhood. It basically is the Muslim Brotherhood. It also has given protection to the leadership of Hamas as well as the Taliban, and is working with Iran. Why do we tolerate this? Well, we're making deals with them. Why do we tolerate their money coming into our country and destroying our colleges and universities and taking over big chunks of our culture?
You know, Mark, I have to say, you are one of the very few people who has been asking this question and demanding answers for it. So few people in America have. People talk about lobby groups this and foreign funding this. There have been billions of dollars that have been pumped into the United States of America in recent years by Qatar, which is a country of a few 100,000 people with a sort of slave class that they import with second-class citizenship rights to wait on them and to serve them. And they have pumped, as you said, hatred and ideology around the world. They funded Hamas. They host Hamas. They give sanctuary to Hamas, just as the Qataris did to al-Qaeda figures in the 1990s. But they are allowed to fund institution after institution, university after university. They pay hundreds of millions of dollars a year for lobbying in Washington, D.C. And that, I'm afraid, is part of the answer, as you know, is that the Qataris have compromised so many people in America, including people in Washington, D.C. They splurge money around like a hose pipe, and they get what they want for it, which is a kind of cover, which is that too few people are willing to call them out. And I've said since the beginning of the war in the Middle East, on October the 7th, 2023, on the beginning of this round of the war, I've always said the same thing, that if an American president had gone to Qatar on the 8th of October and said, you hand over all the hostages now, you hand over the leadership of Hamas, this terrifically awful war of the last 19 months wouldn't even have had to have been fought. And it could have been done, but it wasn't done. Because Qatar is still regarded by so many people in Washington, Democrats and Republicans, as some kind of friend to this country, and it isn't. But if this country wanted to change Qatar, it could. It doesn't even have to do anything. It doesn't even have to touch a hair of anyone's head. America, with its great power and might, could lean on Qatar, and they would change their ways in a heartbeat. And it's a great mystery to me, as it is to you, as to why that hasn't been done.
And you know what, Douglas, no matter how much information I put out there, no matter how many shows I do on Fox here, other places, and so it doesn't seem to matter. I mean, it's not getting through to anybody. Or maybe it's getting through, but nothing's happening. I mean, they gave $5 million to the Medal of Honor Museum in Texas. They poison all these institutions. They provide all this money. They basically have destroyed the American Ivy League college system. They're now working on K through 12. And then they had this seminar. Did you see this the other day where we have people from our government, we have people from Congress, we have business bigwigs all over the world attending, and one of the organizations sponsoring it is Bloomberg News. It's shocking.
Yeah. There is just not enough discussed in this country about what Qatar has been doing and its behavior, its attempt to play both the fire starter and the firefighter. You know, they've been praised, I think, completely wrongly by President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff. And he praised the Qataris recently because they got Hamas to release one American-born hostage, Eden Alexander. And I was so appalled by this because, as I said again in the New York Post, it just goes to show if Qatar wanted to get all the hostages released, it could do in a heartbeat. It would pick up the phone to Hamas and say, the game's over, hand them over. But it doesn't do that. And yet it reaps the praise of people who say, gosh, they're doing God's work by releasing one American-born hostage after 18 months of horror and torture in the terror tunnels of Gaza. And then they are acclaimed as some kind of ally. You know, my view is, Mark, that if you burn down your neighbor's house and then show up 18 months later with a fire extinguisher, you are not someone to be praised.
Nah, great point. And they're the mediator for us. And with Israel, Israel hates them, of course, on the release of the hostages when they're advising Hamas not to release the hostages. I mean, what kind of a disgusting fan dance is this? It just, to me, it is just, it is shockingly stupid. Just shockingly stupid. Folks, it's a great book on democracies and death cults, Israel and the Future of Civilization. You can see Douglas Murray is a very unique person, very intelligent, and really superb communicator. And Douglas, I want to thank you for all you're doing. Oh, one other thing. So you've been targeted, really, by the hard right. They're not even the hard right. I don't know what the hell they are, to be perfectly honest with you. And the left, the extremists, the radicals, who really come together on this, don't they? That is, trashing Israel, pretending they're American firsters, but trashing America as well. Mm. They all sound like Bernie Sanders, but they pretend they're not. and you've been the target of this. What has that been like?
Well, it's all water off a duck's back, frankly, Mark. But it is strange to me. I call them the anti-American right. The people who believe that America is, there are people on the left we've heard of for years, and you and I, many others, have called them out. The people on the left who believe that America is rotten. And we have criticized those people, and we've been horrified by them, and those guys have lost badly at the ballot box. But we also now have people on the right in America who also believe that America has never been a force for good in the world. They say we mustn't do anything. We must be the world's premier power, but America mustn't do anything because it's never done anything right. Never. Now they want to take the great victory of the Western Alliance in World War II away from us as well.
Well, Douglas, what about the Soviet Union? What happened to that?
Oh, I mean, these people haven't even heard of that. They are intent. They are intent on portraying America as the bad guy in the world. And I'm used to hearing this from the radical left. But hearing it from the radical right, the know-nothing right, is really extraordinary. Nevertheless, we're going to have to push back on it because, if that stuff gets anywhere near the center of the Republican Party, then it will be as toxic as AOC and Ilhan Omar and co have been for the Democratic Party. But I believe in the goodness of the American people, and I believe that the American people want to be the country that they are, with a noble and a good history. And they don't want to hear these people from left or right talking this country down.
I think that's right. All right, folks. Douglas, thank you for everything, and God bless you, my friend.
And you. Thank you.
Be well. Be well. Be safe. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. Well, you're going to have a long weekend. That's nice, right? I think it is. The big fight over this budget bill now. Rand Paul and Ron Johnson said, I'm against it. I don't give a damn what anybody thinks. Just can't raise the debt limit this high. Okay, let's say I agree with them. Now what? Now what, Mr. Producer? They don't have the votes to do what they want to do. So what are we supposed to do? A lot of good stuff in this bill, including these tax cuts. A lot of good stuff in this bill, including securing the border. Then we have other Republicans who are out there saying, these tax credits that were given for all these, these so-called climate and energy initiatives like solar panels and windmills and all the rest of it, those House Republicans went too far in eliminating them or eliminating them too fast. So then we have that. It's amazing how the left's agenda becomes the agenda of the Republicans in name only, the establishment Republicans, isn't it? So now they're going to fight. They're going to fight for the subsidies for windmills and solar panels and their like. Well, you have others saying, there's no way I can vote for this under any circumstances. See you tomorrow and don't bother me. I don't know. I don't know how Johnson does it. I don't know how Thune does it. I really don't, because my tolerance level is much lower than theirs. I can tell you that right now. And it's just shocking. I mean, this budget is not a perfect budget. There'll never be a perfect budget, but it's much better than virtually any other budget that I can remember since the Reagan years. But these two probably would have voted against the Reagan budget. I don't have contempt for Ron Johnson. He's a good man. I have contempt for Rand Paul. He's sort of the, he's the turd in the swimming pool. Not because he's more principled than the rest of us. It's because he is a radical libertarian. His foreign policy is not a rational foreign policy. His other policies, some are, but many are not. The vaccine issue was his big issue, and he ran with it, and he did a very good job with it. But I can't think of anything else. Can you, Mr. Producer? I literally can't think of anything else. Fauci, but that's the vaccine issue, as far as I'm concerned. If you can't figure out how to build a coalition, and yet you require one to get anything done in the Senate or in the House, then what good are you? I mean, what's the point? What's the point? I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Why are judges involved at all in funding decisions about federal funds in colleges and universities, or national security and international decisions by the president and his administration about who can and cannot come into the country and for what reason? Why are federal judges involved in this? I understand people bring lawsuits, colleges bring lawsuits, but why don't they just say, we don't have any jurisdiction here, sorry, and get out? And so the president determined the other day that when it comes to Harvard, which is one of the worst abusers of the civil liberties of a number of people, including Jews. They targeted Asians a couple of years back. 1930s, they targeted Jews again at the behest of the Nazis. This is Harvard. So you have this judge who ruled that Trump's determination that foreign students, and it was actually the Secretary of DHS, that the foreign students would no longer be accepted by Harvard, given its lax standards and vetting, and given the widespread violation of civil liberties against Jewish students, that they haven't taken the steps to really push back in any significant way. So why is a federal judge involved in this? And look how the media conduct this. You know, folks, the media in this country hates the country. I've got something here. I didn't even know this was going on. Let me pull this up. See if I can find it. Something that was going on with the Washington Post today. Basically, it was something to the effect, somebody sent this to me, believe it or not, from Mediaite, a site that I despise, but it's not because of them that I'm pulling this up, because of them that they regurgitated it. We're getting there. Just stick with me a second. Of course, when you need something, you can't find the damn thing. But basically, it was a question raised by the Washington Post if, the questions are being raised, if Jews know where they belong. Something to that effect. And people are saying, what do you mean, do they know where they belong? What the hell does that mean? Because this is the American media. This is the same American media, ladies and gentlemen. The same American media that has attempted to destroy the state of Israel and has taken the side of the terrorists in so many respects. It's shocking to me. We are going through our own 1930s in this country. We absolutely are. The difference is we have a president that's fighting it, we have an administration that's fighting it, but we have judges who are the fifth column defending it, as well as other fifth columnists like the isolationists, the Marxists and the Islamists on the left. The isolationists, again, I don't use this on the right because they're not on the right. They're their own kind of weirdos. All right, let me check it. Mr. Producer's very, very competent. Let's see here. Oh, this is something different. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the other day, this Ryan Clark, the things he said about Robert Griffin III? All right, hold on, I'm getting confused here. Let me get to that in a second. All right, here we have it. All right, here it is. Oh, Caleb is involved in this. Caleb how? WTF is this? Washington Post shredded for questioning, quote, where Jews belong, unquote, after embassy murders. It says here, the Washington Post sparked a fury of anger online Friday with a post on X that raised eyebrows by raising an offensive, need a little literacy class there, that raised eyebrows by raising an offensive question in the wake of the murders of two Israeli embassy staffers, saying the grisly act of terror has amplified, quote, confusion, unquote, about, quote, where Jews belong. Where Jews belong? Washington Post was another newspaper that covered up the Holocaust, along with the New York Times, just so you know. Really, all these media outlets are just so despicable. But while I'm there, I brought up to you the other day that what this guy Ryan Clark had said about RG3, that he didn't have the proper perspective, or that the reason that he didn't appreciate RG3's view on Clark and Reese and the foul was because he's married to a white woman, and it's the second time he's been married to a white woman. I said, what kind of racist crap is this? Ryan Clark regrets bringing Robert Griffin III's wife into things, writes the New York Post. Clark publicly apologized to Griffin, his former NFL teammate, on the Pivot podcast today over comments he'd made about the former quarterback's wife, Greta, as their beef over the Caitlin Clark-Angel Reese rivalry got personal. She should not have been brought up in me trying to make a point. I guess he means by me, trying to make a point about how having black women close to you and the things that you can learn from them can help you approach how you speak to and about them, Clark said about his wife. She didn't need to be the illustration of that. I could speak positively about what they are without making the insinuations that it's something that non-black women don't do well. This guy's barely literate, Mr. Producer, by the way. Clark elaborated on this thought process behind the initial video of the Griffin couple discussing the feud between the WNBA stars Reese and Clark. In the video that RG3 posted that I felt mocked Angel Reese, she, his wife, was in the background. Clark said, I didn't love the optics of RG3, a black man, attacking and imitating, and what I felt insulting a black woman with his wife in the background, almost as a prop, and in my opinion, applauding what I thought was a personal attack. Why don't you stay the hell out of it, you schmuck? It has nothing to do with you. The video that set off the ex-NFL's feud. Griffin claimed Reese hated Clark. That was the reason behind the Chicago Forward's reaction to a flagrant foul by the Fever star in their season-opening matchup. ESPN analysts responded to Griffin, claiming that he is not educated on what black women deal with because both his marriages have been to white women, which Griffin said crossed a line by bringing family into the argument. And Griffin is right, as I brought up yesterday. Ryan Clark personally attacking me and my family personally over a sports opinion is cowardly, spineless, and weak, Griffin wrote. Ryan Clark personally attacked me and my family over a sports opinion. It's a bad look for ESPN and for him as a man. Clark racked up his apology on the podcast by directly addressing Greta, his wife, Griffin's wife, who shares 3 daughters with Griffin. I was out of line. I was out of bounds. I apologize to all the people who don't like RG3's take or the way that he moves, or even if you just take my side in this conversation, leave his family alone. Now, 2 things. What he said was reprehensible on many levels. He brings in his wife, the fact that she's white, the fact that his prior wife was white. This is something that is to be celebrated in our country, that people marry other people regardless of their race and so forth and so on. It's not to be condemned. It's number one. Number 2, he is a black man, so I suspect he knows what it's like. He was raised by a black mother. So let's stop playing games with that. And number 3, he made an apology. I guess it's earnest. Only he knows if it's earnest. And so that's that. I don't know if I'm RG3 and I would accept it, but as far as we, the onlookers, the public, are concerned, at least for me, I speak for myself, it's over. Guy made an apology, smart thing to do, right thing to do. But I would say to Ryan Clark, everything is not about race. It's just not. Everything is not about race. But let's say a lot of things are about race. If you're a public figure, you should do the best you can. The best you can to try and settle down the situation. Not add fuel to the fire. That's what you ought to try and do. It's not easy. It's a lot harder. It's what I do. Just try and bring a little bit of compassion, a little bit of insight. Try and calm down the situation, but don't pour fuel on the fire. That what you did was so far out in left field, it's not even funny. That's just my personal advice. Take it or leave it. But then again, I'm not a black woman, so what do I know? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I don't think Ryan Clark's a black woman either. But, again, what do I know? Apparently not enough. All right, I want to get to this. President Trump has made some excellent points today. His access, the media's access to him is extraordinary. It's utterly unprecedented. I love the people who say, well, maybe he has some cognitive issues. He has no cognitive issues. None. Zero. This I can tell you on my own. Here he is in the Oval Office today. Billions of dollars going to Harvard. Cut one, go.
Are you considering stopping other universities besides Harvard from accepting foreign students?
Well, we're taking a look at a lot of things. And as you know, billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard. How ridiculous is that? Billions. And they have $52 billion as an endowment. They have $52 billion. And this country is paying billions and billions of dollars and then gives student loans and they have to pay back the loans. So Harvard's going to have to change its ways. So are some others.
What is wrong with that? Anything that he just said. What is wrong with that's our money? If we're not going to cut this, where the hell are we going to cut? You got Republicans in the Senate and say, no. We need the tax credits for, for propellers. And, so they want to fund Democrat policies. Some of these Republicans. This guy Tillis from North Carolina, honestly, what a pain in the ass this guy is. Then you got the usual dummy twins from Maine and the state of Maine, the state of Alaska, Collins and Murkowski. Then you got this moron from what is his name, Cox or something? I forget his name. Another moron. I mean, we ought to be getting conservatives, don't you think? Out of states like Utah. Curtis, that's the guy's name, moron. We ought to be getting conservatives out of Alaska and North Carolina. Instead, look at these weasels. That's right, you're a weasel. Cut 2, go.
Why would you not want the best and brightest from around the world to come?
I do.
Why don't you want the best and brightest from around the world to come to Harvard? Really? Is that what's coming to Harvard? Last time I checked, it's Islamists and Marxists, people who hate America. Is that what's happening, the best and the brightest? Go ahead.
A lot of the people need remedial math. Did you see that? Where the students can't add 2 and 2 and they go to Harvard. They want remedial math, and they're going to teach remedial math at Harvard. Now, wait a minute. So why would they get in? How can somebody that can't add or has very basic skills?
Because it's not based on merit. It's that simple. Because Harvard's not about merit. Harvard's about playing race games. It depends if you're on the good list or the bad list. And that's why the Asian students couldn't get into Harvard, and they had to take Harvard to court, all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had to order them to stop. And as our friend Alan Dershowitz has said, they still haven't stopped. They just find sleazy ways to get around it. That's Harvard. Go ahead.
They're there, and then you see those same people picketing and screaming at the United States and screaming at, they're anti-Semitic or they're something. We don't want troublemakers here.
President Trump ought to be applauded for this. He ought to be celebrated for this. But instead we have a media that is so far up the ass of the Marxist Islamists. It's just sickening. It's sickening. Claire Shipman, who used to be a so-called journalist, the acting Columbia president. How the hell did that even happen? Listen to this moron. Absolute moron. Cut 3, go.
We firmly believe that our international students have the same rights to freedom of speech as everyone else.
But they don't, depending on who they are, how they got here, and under what status. Do you have to be a moron to be a president of one of these Ivy League schools? Apparently you do. Now, of course, they're booing her, and she's trying to appease them. And you're not going to be able to appease them. It's the mob. It's the hate America, hate Israel, hate the Jews mob. That's what it is. Go ahead.
Should not be targeted by the government for exercising that right. And let me also say that I know many in our community today are mourning the absence of our graduate, Mahmoud Khalil.
Mahmoud Khalil was a front man effectively for Hamas, like he was just exercising his free speech. No, it was more than that. There's a civil suit going on that has exposed a hell of a lot about this guy, and they turn him into, Rosa Parks or something. It's disgusting. Horrendous. Then we have Jeffrey Toobin, who should have been so humiliated he never showed up on CNN again. But you have him, you have Stelter, real lunatics. But Toobin is a sicko, absolute sicko, in my humble opinion. Listen to this one. Cut 4, go.
The White House says that enrolling foreign students is they call it a privilege, not a right. Is this lawful?
Why do they call it a privilege and not a right? Because the United States government decides if people come into the country and can attend a school or not. That's why they're called student visas, you moron. But let's hear what Jeffrey Toobin has to say. Go.
that for foreign students to get into to study at an American school, they need a visa. Right. And the United States government controls the visa. But as with so much that we've seen with the Trump administration, they have to follow the law in how they allocate visas. And it certainly seems to me that the Trump administration has not followed the law in banning all these students overnight. They haven't given Harvard or these students due process.
Whoa, stop. So you're giving foreigners due process before they even come into the United States on whether or not they get student visas? That's not the law. This guy would have his legal license pulled. He's a moron. With his pants on or off, he's a moron. You don't get extraterritorial due process because you applied to the United States to come here. What kind of crap is that? I'll be right back.
Plastic conservative fire. The Mark Levin Show. Call in now at 877-381-3811.
Maybe I wasn't clear about what's happening here. The punishment is on Harvard, not the students. So these are students, foreign students, who can come into the country under the requirements of existing immigration law, but they cannot attend Harvard. They can attend another school if they wish, if they get into that other school. It has nothing to do with what this fool said about the due process right of those students. What, they don't have a due process right to go to Harvard? Now, that's just ridiculous. They're foreigners, number one. Number two, it has nothing to do with due process. So the focus and the punishment is on Harvard, not on the students. I hope people understand this. Let's take some calls, shall we? Steve, Kalamazoo, Michigan, XM Satellite. Steve, how are you, my friend?
Good, Mark. Good to hear from you. Hey,
Thank you.
I'm excited about your new book coming, what I've heard you talking about. I think you're going to really disturb the New York Times because, you're an 8-time number one on their list, and now you're going to be number 9.
Well, you know what? I don't know that. We'll see if the folks in the audience here are really up to ordering the book and want to read it and so forth. I hope they do. New York Times or no New York Times, I just feel it's a very, very important. There's important information in that book. Not because I wrote it, because I dug it out and pulled it together and used my noggin in order to make the arguments, but I think we got to go back to basics to understand who we are, who we're supposed to be, versus being overwhelmed with the static and the propaganda and the thought control and the language control. And so I just try to cut through all that and remind ourselves who we are and how we got to where we are and who they are. And then when I hear, Steve, some of these pundits who really don't know very much beyond the surface level go on and say the Democrats are really in trouble and so forth. Number one, we have a bare majority in the House and the Senate. They're not in trouble. A bare majority. Number two, they do know what they stand for. I know what they stand for. The fact that they have to pull together a marketing plan, which is what we're talking about, how to communicate with the American people in order to lie themselves back into office, is completely different from them not knowing who they are. They are the anti-America. They are the anti-founding. They are the anti-declaration. That's what they are. And so I provide the substance, the history, the names to prove the point. And Steve, I just want to thank you. I'm glad you're excited about it. I'm very excited about this book, and I'm excited about, you folks getting it. Did you pre-order your copy already?
No, in fact, I've been super busy with my business and that kind of thing, and then I've been listening to what you've been saying, Mark. But one more thing that I'd like to.
Yes, sir.
I believe that you are the American Moses of the 21st century.
Oh my God, I wouldn't go that far, but you're very sweet. Thank you.
Well, the reason why I say that, Mark, is knowing that you and I'm a little bit older than you, getting up there in age. Moses was wise enough to find somebody like Joshua to replace him and mentored him. And I just want to let you know, there is a young guy that's 40 years old this year that I believe would be right up your alley. And the guy is Stephen Miller. He speaks a lot
Stephen
like
Miller.
you, only he's about 30 years younger than you.
Well, he's a good guy. And Stephen Miller used to, am I allowed to say this, Mr. Producer? He used to contact our program when he was a young guy working on Capitol Hill. And I would speak to him then. Very, very good guy. There's a lot of really good guys. Ben Shapiro's another one. You got Josh Hammer, who's a great guy. My stepson, David Milstein. There's a lot, and I'm sure I've missed, 40 of them. And my goal is to give them attention. They're really sharp. They're really patriotic. I could be hit by a bus tomorrow, too, or have a heart attack, and it's all over. And it is important that we have people behind us. I mean, I work closely with Dan Bongino over the years. You see the people that I bring in who fill in when I'm not here. These are fantastic hosts and so forth. So, all right, my brother. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate your call. It's funny, my Hebrew name is Moshe, which is Moses, but I'm no Moses. There's one Moses. That's it. There's one me, too, but, Moses is Moses, and I'm not even close to that. Let's go to Pat in Florida, XM Satellite. Pat, how are you?
I'm fine, Mr. Levin, and thank you so much for taking my call.
You know what's interesting, Pat? Everybody's so formal with me. Just call me Mark. It's okay. I'm good about that.
Okay, Mark.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I needed that invitation.
All right.
The reason I'm calling you, and again, I want to thank you for taking my call. A week ago, I read in the New York Post, which I read daily, that the big, beautiful bill included relief. I believe the word was relief for seniors receiving Social Security.
It does, to a point, and depending on income, but it's significant. That's correct.
I panicked, absolutely, because one of the reasons I voted for Trump, and by the way, I voted for Trump when he first ran. I am a Trump fan. I'm a Republican, and I consider myself a patriot. But anyway, just to give you a little background. Anyway, I've noticed that in all the media coverage, nobody has talked about when this, I call it an odious clawback, started. So I did a little research. Somebody helped me. And on SocialSecurityAdministration.gov, it identifies the act under the Reagan administration.
We're running out of time. It was Reagan. Is that what you're going to say? I'm going
to give you this. I'm going to come to my point.
Yeah.
That the taxation, federal taxation for for Social Security began. So in the last 40 years, the greatest generation and us baby boomers have been taxed up to 85%.
So why did Reagan do that? Do you know? Did they tell you why on that website?
No, and I'm inviting...
Because Reagan eliminated the inheritance tax. It went down to 0. On top of that, Reagan slashed the high-end tax, which was much higher than it is today, to 27 or 28%. And then he had a flat tax for everybody else. I think it was like 15 or 16%. And I know we talk about this administration, the greatest tax cuts in American history, actually the greatest and most substantial tax cut because of where it started, which was much higher, was Reagan in 1981 in August. So he eliminated the inheritance tax, which means you could leave everything you want to anybody you want without paying 1 cent in federal income tax. He eliminated the upper end tax, bringing it way, way down, as well as the middle class level, bringing it way, way down. And so he was attacked because the wealthiest people in the country in terms of age group are senior citizens. It's not people getting started. It's not even the middle class. It's senior citizens, many of whom are in the middle class. And so he had to take in order to give, and that's what happened.
Well,
you got 30 seconds. I got to go. 30 seconds.
Right. If you have a pension and a small pension, let's say, and Social Security, and you try to take out any money from your IRAs, like your RMD, it puts you in the 22% bracket. I'm right now at the 53%.
I've got to run. All I can tell you is, if you look at the statistics, and you can research them yourself as you did this, the wealthiest class of people, I didn't say wealthy, the wealthiest class of people in the country are 50 and older. That's just the truth. And when he slashed taxes across the board, the income tax rates, when he eliminated the inheritance tax, and he did some other things too, which gave tremendous relief to the people with the most money. I didn't say the richest, but the people with the most money. He had to find a way in order to claw some of it back. And that's the way that they settled on it. Like it or not, that's what happened. It's not like he was going after senior citizens. He was a senior citizen. What do you need me to do, Rich? All right, I'm behind, folks. I got to get going here. 1 second. The printer. Here we go. Sorry, folks. We're live and national, you know. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This week went fast. Very sad week, really. Very sad week. What happened to those two kids and the way they were murdered. The way that poor 26-year-old American citizen was shot crawling on the ground. He shoots her again, and she sits up, struggles to sit up, then he executes her. I mean, this is sick. And it'll be forgotten. By this time next week, nobody's going to talk about it. Nobody. I want to thank President Trump for his fearlessness in fighting these colleges and fighting anti-Semitism. He's got an all-hands-on-government effort taking place here. They're doing everything humanly possible. These are the remnants of the prior administration with open borders and immigration and these radical left-wing institutions and these radical left-wing media types and judges promoting this crap. It's just unbelievable. And no, it's not free speech. There's nothing free about it, and it's nothing speech about it. And folks, this is the time, seriously, to jump in and pre-order your copy of On Power. On Power. You got a little taste of it today. You've had a little taste of it a couple of days. I haven't overwhelmed you with it, but I think this is a book that's really going to turn the light bulbs on. It did for me as I researched it and wrote it. It goes right down to the fundamentals. Right down to the fundamentals. Everything's going to make sense. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Amazon.com. Get your pre-order copy. Why now? Number one, you can tell your father or your husband or your grandfather. That's their Father's Day gift when it comes out. Number two, you'll get the best discount once it's released. We go to America every Friday in honor of you. Here we go. officially over, thankfully. The weekend begins now. Long 3-day weekend. Don't forget Memorial Day and the reason for Memorial Day, please. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel. We have your back. We know it's getting tense. And, of course, you, the greatest people on earth. God bless each and every one of you. Good night, Spritey and Griffey and Pepsi. Good night, Zelda and Smokey and Gigi. Good night, Indy and Patton and Rory. Good night, Marty. Good night, little Barney. Barney passed away 5 years ago last week. Good night, Dad and Mom. We're here holding down the fort, just as you would ask me to do. And Leo and Bernie, Joe, Teddy, Lou. So many fantastic patriots are gone. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, our shows will be on the weekend on Fox. I think you're going to love them. Take a trip over to Amazon. Grab your copy of On Power. Now's the time. Won't hurt you. And good night, America. And have a fantastic weekend. God bless you.